Welcome back to TechMaker. This is Scraping the Web with Ruby Part 7. In the last episode, we actually finished up the scraping piece of this where we went and got all of the data for the current apartment listings in New York City. In this episode, we need to do a little bit of data cleaning. So let's take an example to look at. So if we do listings.first, and then we'll say listing equals underscore listing.public methods false.sort. So we have this neighborhood, we have this housing. Both of those need to be cleaned up a bit. And let's take a look at housing to start. So the first one really is just a random one. Let's look at a handful of them. Let's say listing dot each. I wonder if there's like dot take. I don't think that's okay. Yeah, take 10. So that should give me a. Sometimes I get confused about what's actually an array method versus what's an enhanced Rails method that they add in. So we have dot take, which should take the first 10. Dot each do listing, and then we'll just put listing dot housing. So that's going to spit out a bunch of HTML at the end. Okay, so really all of them start with this BR thing. So that's the number of bedrooms. And then there's an opening here for there to be, I believe that's number of square feet, but I kind of want to see it. So let's see if we can get, let's do 100. Surely in 100 there will be some. So if we scroll up, there's going to be a ton of HTML here. Like a ton. Okay, there we go. Okay, so that is an example of one. So I'm going to say what we want to do is actually pretty much every single one has the number of bedrooms, it looks like. So what we'd like to do is say, like, if there is, and I'm just scanning through, and it looks like if there's the square feet, it's going to have this FT. I'm trying to just quickly look and see if anything doesn't. Okay, so it looks like if there's a number of bedrooms, there's always going to be a BR, and from what I can see, if there's a square footage listed, there's always going to be this FT. So let's do something here really quick and try this live and see what happens. So let's see if we do like class listing def test. This is a test. Okay, so now if I do listings.first.test, you can see that in Ruby you can open a class up at any time and define a new method on it, and then all of the objects that are of that type get that new method. So that's handy for things in all sorts of contexts, but right now it's handy for us because we can actually kind of just add new logic to the stuff that's already loaded. So let's think about how we might want to deal with this data we've been looking at for the quote housing. So what we can do is say class listing, like we just did, and let's define, I didn't mean to hit enter, but that's okay. Let's define a method called bedrooms. Okay, that should be one line, but it doesn't really matter. So what we can do is we can say housing dot split on the dash, and what that's going to do is going to take that string, and there's always a dash all the time, as we saw. It's going to take everything before the dash, and it's going to put it in the first element of array, and it's going to take everything after the dash and put it in the next element. So the number of bedrooms is the first element, so we can say 0 to get the first element, or the 0th element, I guess technically. And then what we want to do is we want to get rid of the letters BR. So we'll G sub BR, and we'll put nothing, so just get rid of it. And then I need to get rid of all the white space, and that was called trim or strip. I think it's getting JavaScript mixed up right now with Ruby, but I think it's strip. And let's see how this goes. So first, let's just grab our handy first listing. Listings.first.bedrooms. And we get 3. And then let's check what happens if we run on all of them. So we'll say listings.map and bedrooms. And remember, this just sends the bedrooms message to all of the listings, and it's going to return an array of the number of bedrooms for everything. And we get undefined method split for nil class. So what this is saying is that it's not always the case that we know the number of bedrooms for every listing. And so we have to kind of anticipate that, and if we're going to do any kind of string operations, we need that string to be there. So in this case, I believe that none of these things will necessarily blow up if there is a string. Potentially, if there's no dash, it would blow up. Or no, it would definitely blow up if there were no dash, because it would split, and then you're trying to call the 0th element on that. Anytime you see a bunch of dots like this, sometimes people will refer to that as a train wreck, because you're chaining a bunch of stuff together. There's this thing called the law of Demeter, which you can research, and maybe I'll do some talks or episodes on like design patterns and stuff at some point. But anyway, we need to guard against that. So let's just open up listing again, and then we'll redefine bedrooms, def bedrooms, put it on one line this time, and we'll say return nil unless housing dot, I'm trying to write in Ruby. Return nil. Sorry, I'm trying to write in Rails. In Rails, they have a method called dot present, which is like the opposite of dot nil. So I'm going to say return nil if housing dot nil. So basically, if there's nothing there, just return nil instead of trying to run all these operations. Okay, and then I'm going to run my my train wreck, as I called it, again, and we'll try this again. So we'll see if this works. I think it probably will, because I believe if there's any content, there should always be a dash. That seems to be kind of baked into the page structure. But let's run and see what happens. Could be wrong. Undefined method G sub for nil class. Okay, so it may in fact be the case that we're not getting anything in one case. So we need to redefine that one more time. And if this doesn't quite work out, I may have to dig in a little bit deeper. Return nil if housing dot nil. And then I'm going to return nil again. Nil if, let's see, housing dot index dash dot nil. So what I'm assuming, and this is a guess, what I'm guessing is that this blew up because it hit something that didn't have a dash, because otherwise there would in fact be a 0th element. But that's still a guess. So we'll see what happens. We can always try again. All right, let's just run this. Okay, So that looks like it fixed everything. You can see we have a handful of nils. Let's actually do this. Let's do .map .select and nil .count. So 206 are nil. Listings .count should be 3,000. So we have 206 where there are no bedrooms listed. So I want to work on my method one more time. So I'm going to open up the listing. I'm going to define bedrooms. My return nil of housing.nil is still correct. The other check that I was doing, I'm going to change actually, because I think what I want to do is actually return nil if the index of this BR is nil. Because I think, I'm guessing, and I'm going to try it, and we're going to try it, and basically we're trying on 3,000 data points. So I think if it's true on 3,000 data points, should continue to be true. With the web, you can never tell. Some things don't always work exactly as you think. At any rate, the reason I'm putting BR instead of the dash is the BR is really more specific to bedrooms. So what this is basically saying is like, check if there's actually a bedrooms thing listed here. Okay. So we want to call this again. And I'm actually going to call .2i because I want to convert that into an actual number. And then let's run this again. Okay, so it did work, and now we have actual numbers. So we could do something like we can get the bedrooms, and then we can call that compact to get rid of the nils, and then we can reduce, which just is gonna like call all the functions, or it's gonna send this message in a chain to everything in here. So really quick, what this is doing, we iterate over every single thing, call bedrooms on it, get rid of the nils, and then we're going to send the plus message to every single one. But the way that this reduce function works is it kind of compresses everything into one number. So it adds the first thing to the second thing, and then the third thing to whatever the addition of those two were. And it does that till it gets to the end. And then we can see that there are 6,200 bedrooms for rent in New York City on Craigslist. So that would be a good point to copy that method from the terminal over into the actual code that you've been writing and save it. I'll do that later off camera so that we have that available. I'm going to go ahead and continue on with another method. I want to get the number of square feet, and it's going to work basically the same. So I'm just going to define a method called square feet. And the first thing, we definitely want to return nil if there's no housing. And then the next thing, I definitely want to return nil if there's no foot listed in there, no FT. Now, I think I noticed something earlier. I'm going to run it just the way that we had the other one, and we'll use the second, well, let me pull it up and that'll make more sense. So what we might think, and this may work, we'll try, we might think that, okay, well, we'll do dash, split, or split on the dash, get the second or the first element actually, but the second element. Get rid of the feet, strip all the space, and convert to an integer. That may work. We're going to try it, but I think that sometimes there's no dash for feet, so we may have to check that one. And then there may be a new line character we have to deal with. So at any rate, we'll run this the same way we were the other. Well, first of all, let's do listings.first.square feet. Okay, so nil. So, and that's kind of expected. I think most of them didn't have it. So I'm going to just go back here and get square feet, and I'm kind of expecting to hit an error. Yeah, so undefined method G sub for nil class. So what I'm thinking that is, so we'll just open it up and redefine it. What I'm thinking that is that there's a case where there are square feet listed, but again, there's no dash. So what I want to do is I want to say, actually, this is a good stopping point. So I could say if housing dot index dash dot nil, I'm going to do one thing, and otherwise I'm going to do another thing. So I'm going to cycle back up to my housing split, whatever. So I'm just going to say housing dot g sub feet. So I'm just going to assume, okay, this is the only thing here. I'm going to get rid of feet. I'm going to strip out the space, and I'm going to convert to an integer. Else, and I'm going to go back and do what I was doing before. And we'll try that again. So let's see what happens here. I don't know if that worked exactly. Yeah, it does. Awesome. So we can check if we get rid of all the nils with compact. We can check and see that out of 3,000, not very many have the square feet listed. And, you know, that may be different for different cities. New York has notoriously small apartments, so people may not want to list that. Who knows? Anyway, so that works. So that's basically it for this episode. The next episode, we are going to deal with the neighborhood issue as best as we can. We'll see how that goes. I suspect that we'll lose a little bit of data because there's crazy neighborhood stuff entered into some of them. But I'm not sure how much, so we'll see that in the next episode. And either in the next episode or the one after, we'll export all the data to a CSV. We may look for some other interesting data we can mix into this. So I'm kind of building this up so that we end up with this really nice data set in a CSV that then we can go and start a new series on some data analysis. So we'll use that file in that series. So if you're following along, you should be able to jump straight into that. So anyway, but that's all the time I have. So hope you enjoyed this, and I'll talk to you next time.